Hello everyone. I recently had an amazing opportunity to map about 400 acres of Fly Ranch. Fly Ranch was recently purchased by the Burning Man organization, and they have some pretty cool things that they want to do in the future. I had approached Will Peterson, one of the founding board members and of the Burning Man project, and asked him if we could go ahead and try this. Him being an avid drone pilot, we went down there and I visited him in Gerlach. We were able to set up a time to visit Fly Ranch and also on top of that see the amazing Fly Geyser, which I had recently finished a video about. What we did, for a lot of people that don't know or are just getting into this, is use several pieces of software and hardware to create a 3D map overview to kind of build a section of Fly Ranch that can be then looked at higher detail. You can see elevation profiles, and we can turn it into a 3D model, bring it into a game engine, and kind of start laying out buildings on top of that area if you wanted to, for say. So first thing what we're looking at is a piece of the software called Btw I. They've been around for a while. They're an online service. There are other pieces of software, and so I had first originally started with Pix 4D and worked with those guys in the early stages of mapping, doing some test mapping in my Lake Tahoe area. It's a great piece of software. Another piece is PhotoScan. This is also a piece of software that'll take any of the images that you throw at it and generate a 3D model out of this. And then we've slowly started to get online services like, Drone Deploy. There's another one called Skycatch. I think there's a few out there, and I've used a few of them just to see the results. And that's kind of one thing in my arsenal is basically, once you have the data collected, which I'll go into in a second, find the best tool that works for whatever you need to do or whatever job you're doing. So in this case is basically, you have your drone. I had used DJI products for a while. I've been flying them since the Phantom 1. I have several DJI drones, and for this project we used DJI Phantom 4 with about 4 batteries. I went into my my first part of this on my blog, which I also said, there's some lessons I learned out in the field, and one of them is definitely bring more batteries than you think. Drone Deploy and some of the software packages that you use can try to calculate the battery, how long it takes to do, a section. However, then you have wind and other things to deal with, so, just bringing a little more. So basically I had 4 sections, so I kind of, this is kind of photoshopped together to show you kind of like the area that we did. So basically I would fly one section, which would took about 22 minutes to capture, and the drone follows a certain path in a grid and takes photos pointing down. You probably want to make sure that you don't have any weird overcast or clouds going, because then you're going to get some photos that might have shadows in them or moving and stuff like that. So try to find a good day, not too bright. So what ended up happening is after 4 of these sections, I think I ended up with almost 2,000 photos. And then what you do is you take those photos and then you run them through your favorite processing tool, which then takes the photos and then generates point cloud data out of that, map data, elevation data, and vegetation data, among other things. So you can get quite a bit of cool information of just flying the drone overhead in a grid pattern and having these software packages generate data for you. So again, this is the first section. So the Drone Deploy has a web interface and it has a mobile interface. One of the things and the challenges that I've found with some of these software packages is in certain areas you might not have internet connection. So it's good to make sure you download or cache the map if they have that in the service that you're using on your mobile device, and do a quick dry run and turn off your internet on your iPad, and then see if it's still there. I had issues where I would pinch and zoom, and I think it's been fixed, that all the map data underneath went away and I was just looking at a gray screen with a grid. So, just try things out before you go out into fields or remote locations where you may or may not have internet access. So this is this photo is a screenshot from a section of Fly Geyser, and you can see over here how many acres it takes, and then you have the resolution per inch per pixel, and then basically once you are out in the field, you connect your drone, make sure you have all the proper camera settings. I would make sure that you're not in auto focus. You might want to look at manual and maybe bring it up in the air first and find the good settings for it, because with manual you might get different exposures. Also maybe check the white balance. White balance can cause issues sometimes. You're going to just have to kind of play with it first before you actually go out and do a real job, if that's what you want to do, or if you just want to play around with it. You basically launch the drone and it goes ahead and does its takes all the photos for you, and then you end up with a bunch of photos. Let's see, I may have some right here. You end up with a lot of photos that are just kind of parts of the path that it took to get down and do the grid pattern. One thing that's kind of cool with this is, we have Google Maps. However, they're not getting the quality we can from flying the drone, 100 feet to 200 feet, depending on what you're doing. Let's see, go back into this. Okay, so this is a version of Drone Deploy. You can also load your data into Pix4D. They all have trials, and some of them are 30 days, some of them are 15, and then they kick in with various pricing levels depending on what you want to do and the data that you want to do. So, if you're doing this professionally and you're making money on it, you can afford it. Some of these packages get really expensive. So just, play around with them all and then see, if that's something you want to do, or experiment, more hobbyist style things. So this is all the images loaded in. Each image is a red dot. There was some overlap and missing for some reason, but once you process the data, you have, you generate a point cloud, and then you can see up here in the sky is basically where the drone was in each part, and then how it's generating, or how it generated the 3D map. Here's another view. So this is more of the point cloud data, because you can see it's a bunch of cubes, points or whatever, and this is before the 3D map is generated. So it goes through the process of generating your point cloud, and then you can generate the 3D map, and then generate all the other data that you may need for that. Here's another example of the point cloud, from a little further away. One of the things that's kind of unique is when everything's processed, and you can create elevation profiles, and that kind of gives you a nice overview of, like, are you in a flooding zone? How high are certain sections? You can also use tools to kind of measure the elevation profile. Draw a little line from one side to the other, and it draws a little graph that shows you how high or how low it is between certain areas. This was generated with Drone Deploy, and so you can see obviously the red areas are the highest peaks in this section, and the blue areas are the lowest. So, and then this is what it's a little hard to see, but Fly Geysers right here, and then you have all the little hot springs around here. So this would be the map version of it. Again, we get higher resolution. Whoops, my computer's churning a little bit. But here you go. You can see in this section that we were just pointing out the hot springs and then fly geyser. And then you can get down into vegetation layer stuff, which depending on what you're doing, you can, if you're doing agricultural stuff, you can see where places are starting to die out, and you fly over, several times a month or however you want to, and you can kind of see if things are changing. So that just kind of covers some of the things that you can get. Again, for this project, I used the drone deploy system. So this is their actual website. So this is exactly what I was showing you, a section of that was generated. The 3D model, you can do the elevation, you can calculate distance and stuff like that. Right now, my trial expired, so some of these are not active for me anymore. And you can also export your data and send that to you. So what I ended up with after doing all this was I broke it down into map data. So you can see each section that I did. I have the 3D model, I have the elevation profile, the map, and then the plant data. So that way I can use that for whatever purposes that I need. And I'll show you what happens after you generate the 3D model. Once the 3D model is generated, you're going to get it spit out in various formats sometimes. And if you're not familiar with how to deal or 3D modeling, it might be a little overwhelming to you. What you can do is take that data and upload it to a website called Sketchfab, and then you could, as you can see here, you can see the 3D model. The basic packages or the basic pricing, we won't allow you to upload models that are more than 50 megs. So depending on the output of everything, you might need to sign up for their higher end ones. But it's kind of cool. You can create little annotations. You can rotate around. So this is actually a 3D model. But what I tend to do is, since my background is in 3D graphics, modeling, game development, I usually bring them into something. I've been using this package called Maya for years. And basically you can see these are, after the point cloud is generated, you can see the mesh that's generated from that data. And we can go ahead and, let's see, it's wireframe. This is kind of without, not wireframe anymore. Let's see, where's the geyser at? Oh, here we go. Then we can turn it into the textured mode. So again, what I tend to do here is I'll go ahead and optimize the mesh down, remove any non-manifold geometry and stuff like that. And then what happens is I'll either export it into Sketchfab, or depending on what I'm doing, I'll throw it into a game engine, and then we kind of go from there. But this is a great thing to kind of start. If you're a 3D modeler, you could actually go down here and start building little houses, or on your construction project, whatever you want to do, and kind of visualize how things might look. The cool thing about putting it into a 3D engine is you can go ahead and adjust the lighting, do things in real time. So let's check out what that looks like. So let me turn on. So this is a different model. So what you can also do with this mapping software is fly around an object and take photos at various angles. I hadn't planned on doing that with this because we were doing just top down for the sections. So I didn't get as detailed of a model that I wanted to from the geyser. But here it is. So I'll just show you basically a representation. Now this was generated, I believe, in Photoscan or Photosoft, which took a while, and you're going to need a kind of a hefty GPU to kind of deal with that, because it's going to take a lot of crunching and stuff. So definitely have a high-end GPU, SSD, hard drive, and lots of memory, and a good CPU. Never hurts. One of the things you can start to do with this is work with the lighting and see how lighting might change what it looks like from the night to the day, or day to the night, or just kind of moving things around. So this would be, you can see the differences in changing. What I did, talked to a friend of mine who's an architect, and we mapped out a certain area of Lake Tahoe, and we're like, well, let's combine our skills, and I'll generate the map data, and you give me the house, and then we'll put it on there, and basically we can show clients or whatever what it might look like at night, what it might look like if it's raining. You know, there's lots of things you can do once you have the 3D model data, or and then, you know, pulling it into a game engine if you know what you're doing. For example, I can just throw this little, let's see, why is it not supposed to be smoking, but something is not working. So let's see, particles. Let me see. Oh, there we go. So I can drag that in. Let me get rid of this guy. He's not doing anything. We'll move it in position, and then I'll rotate it a bit. So anyway, I mean, this, I could have made water, but I didn't. So for this example, so you can just see how you can start to make changes to the map data or any 3D models that you've done, and kind of go from there. You know, let's say, for example, we wanted to simulate some fire, and how do you know, get away from that fire? So I could drag one of these in, we'll resize it a little bit, give it some. So now you can, you know, so I think you kind of get the idea of what you can do of taking your drone data, mapping data, and pulling it into a 3D modeling program or a game engine. For example, I can just hit the play button here, and I'll be, whoa, don't want to be on fire, but, you know, so we'll take some of this water over here and douse this, so, just kidding. But yeah, another thing, you know, if you're not a good 3D modeler, but you know, you think you can wing it in the game engine, what you can start to do is like shape out, or kind of, let's see, can drag a cube in here, and then can resize it. Oops, wrong key. Create a little wall. Let's focus on that. So I can start to, you know, block out potentially a structure if I wanted to, by using this program. And that's kind of what the old school game development used to be, when on the Doom and Quake days you would just kind of start, you know, boxing stuff out. And then, granted, this is just an example. I mean, I can spend more time on it. And then just throwing potential materials on it. So let's throw some brick-looking stuff on that here. Or, you know, metal. Hello? There we go. That's not lit very well. So anyhow, this kind of gives you just an idea, whoops, I threw that on the ground, of what can be done with the technology at hand, you know, and how I tend to take things to the next level. So, you know, if you have any questions, you know, feel free to hit me up. I do have to thank Will again and the Burning Man project. I hope to get out there again and do some more data and get a higher end model of the geyser. There are some issues with it because it's always constantly having steam come out of it, so it's hard to, you know, get a good capture. But, you know, technology is moving pretty quickly, so I'm trying to always stay on the bleeding edge of it and taking it to the next level. One of the things that can be done is, let's say you build a bunch of buildings on this area, you can put on some VR goggles and walk around it and just kind of see how things are, trigger light and dark and rain and all these kind of effects. Anyhow, I wanted to thank everybody for listening to this. I know it was kind of like all over the map, but hopefully kind of gives you an idea of what is possible. Cheers.